And just when you thought this NFL season could not get any crazier, we are graced with that bizarre and wild Week 14. So many unexpected and wild games, so many fantasy performances we got to break down, and unfortunately more injuries we have to cover. Again, if you guys are still with us here, last week wrapped up the fantasy regular season. So to all those still alive, to all those still in the playoffs, I congratulate you. I welcome you back. This is going to be an intense 3 weeks to cover, so we will be breaking down each and every week. If you're in the playoffs, doesn't matter if you have a bye, doesn't matter if you're the 6th seed, you always have a chance. So time to make the most of that chance. As always, we'll be covering a lot of this breakdowns, a lot of my normal content here on this channel. Go head over and check Sleeper HQ for a lot of my in-depth player breakdowns and the partnership I have currently with Sleeper HQ. Shout out to them. They're a fantastic company. Remember to always like the video, subscribe, join us on our fantasy journey. We're going to be doing big things here, and I will cue that intro. Welcome back into TwinTakes Fantasy Football, and first off, I will apologize. I still am a little bit under the weather, so that's why my voice sounds a little bit off. No, it's not my mic quality. My mic quality is still fairly good. I still like my mic. I've had this mic for, I think, 4 or 5 years now. I'm pretty partial to it, so I'm not going to be changing it. No, it's just my voice on this lovely December day. But like I said before the intro, congratulations to all of you who are still alive. It has been a long, arduous fantasy season. So many ups, downs, injuries, just craziness that we had to overcome. Some really low-scoring weeks, a low-scoring season, in fact, that really saw us make the most of all of our players. And we were provided no shortage of insanity in this past Week 14 to wrap up the regular season. So, I know it was quite a crazy week. I know a lot of people just barely missed the playoffs. Some terrible, devastating injuries, some insane performances. So without further ado, let's break down everything that we saw in that Week 14. So first headline, we got to start off with Brock Purdy, Brock the Rock for his PG nickname. We're going to keep it here on this channel. Try to keep it family friendly for our 3 or 4 viewers. But he looked really, really good in that San Francisco backfield. I mean, he was competent. He had some good throws. He looked a little bit better. His processing was a little bit better than what I saw when he stepped in for Jimmy Garoppolo last week. I mean, the overall stats don't tell the full story. He only threw for 186 yards and 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Obviously, when you have a dynamic offense like the 49ers have with the best guard in the history of the NFL, and Trent Williams, and you have Christian McCaffrey and Jordan Mason, who is a dynamic rookie backing him up, you're going to rely tremendously on that run game. But Brock Purdy got in there and facilitated the offense. I don't know how much this says about Brock Purdy's competency, or just maybe the fact that this is an easy 49ers offense to run that Kyle Shanahan has formatted for the quarterback position, because we've seen Trey Lance come in and run it. We've seen Jimmy Garoppolo come in and be successful over the past 4 or 5 years. Now we see Mr. Irrelevant, pick 277, and Brock Purdy come in and run it. Should be interesting to see how this 49ers quarterback carousel gets resolved. But for now, Brock Purdy is a benefactor. I'm not ready to crown him a GOAT, a legend, a starting NFL caliber quarterback, but I will crown him a competent quarterback that's being supported by one of the most dynamic offenses in the NFL. And certainly he is capable enough to support all the other weapons that are still there, or still remaining, I should say, in San Francisco. And he also is a benefactor of the weapons surrounding him, making him an interesting option that we'll talk about later for fantasy. Number 2, let's talk about that Thursday night Baker comeback. Kind of interesting that there was 2 games 5 days apart. The Bucks down 16-3, 3 minutes left, comeback win 17-16. Rams down 16-3 to the Las Vegas Raiders, 4 minutes left, comeback win 17-16. Again, I'm not a guy who overreacts, who jumps on top of things. I think you could probably take that away from my James Cook reaction last week, and I wasn't super high on picking him up, and we'll talk about his impact on the game later in this episode. But Yeah, Baker, I mean, it's a good story. It's not going to have any impact on fantasy. It's not going to have any impact on the NFL. It's just, a mitigating backup plan for Matt Stafford and his spinal contusion. I mean, the funniest thing to come out of that is obviously the Van Jefferson and Baker Mayfield story, where Baker was trying to get him to come to Oklahoma. Or I guess one of the post-game interviewers asked him, like, what about that connection with Van Jefferson you established over a couple days? Like, no, I knew Van for a while. I tried to get him to come to Oklahoma. He kept leaving me on red and ducking all my calls, but now he can't duck him anymore. So that was just pretty funny. I do have to say, maybe Van Jefferson is a viable fantasy asset. We recommended picking him up a couple weeks ago when we saw both Cooper Kupp and Allen Robinson both succumb to season-ending injury, and Baker is good. I liked his attitude in the post-game press conference. He was humble. He was, thankful to his Panthers teammates. Just a totally different Baker than we're used to seeing, and I think that's going to actually pay dividends for him in his NFL career. So, I mean, kudos to Baker. Fun game to watch, but I don't think it's going to have too much impact on NFL and fantasy. They're already pretty much out of the playoffs at this point. Let's look at number 3, the Lions' dynamic offense, and this is just, again, something that we really have to highlight, that you want pieces of this offense. This is why I have been raving about Jameson Williams, because he has the ability to just absolutely toast guys on the corner. Obviously, it was a blown coverage, but still, 1 catch, 41 yards, and a touchdown. I mean, he just adds another dimension with his absolute insane speed. And you had Jared Goff come in. He's like, yeah, Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, they're great, but they can't touch the speed of Jameson Williams. I think it's Jameson Williams. I think it really is going to open up Amon-Ra St. Brown. We saw DJ Chark get involved. We saw Josh Reynolds get involved. Cleve Raymond even have a decent game. Unfortunately, Jamal Williams he suffered at the hands of the wide receiver involvement. But, Jared Goff is a top 12 quarterback in this league this year. He's really controlling this offense, and there's just a lot of offensive pieces around him that are really making this offense tick. I mean, there's been some semblance of the statement that, the offense and the team in and of itself takes on the mentality and personality of the head coach. And we know Dan Campbell's a very larger-than-life guy, a very passionate guy, and we've seen that. I mean, just watch Hard Knocks. You see how passionate Jamal Williams is. You see how passionate Jared Goff is. You see how passionate these guys are to be playing in Detroit, a team that has been a perennial loser. So, again, I think there's something to be said to that. And also something that we've talked about multiple times on this channel is the Eric Eiger theory to offense and quarterback play, in which there's a huge shift in the NFL and college right now, where people are shifting away from having that whole burden of responsibility being levied on the quarterback's shoulders and being diversified around the offense. So it's more of a summation of total offensive pieces and a competent quarterback that facilitates an offense rather than a quarterback that has to play hero ball all the time. And I think that's where we can really see Jared Goff succeed. So yeah, very excited. We recommended picking up Jameson Williams a couple weeks ago. I think he could be crucial to a fantasy playoff run here. Number 4, the Browns' Watson woes. Again, we saw him shake off a little bit of the rust, but Deshaun Watson still looks pretty terrible. They had a pretty devastating loss to the Bengals. Again, the stats looked a lot better. He doubled his yardage, over doubled his yardage. He threw a touchdown to David Njoku. But again, the Browns, with Deshaun Watson on their helm, we talked about it, about the Lions assuming the personality of their head coach and Dan Campbell. It's hard not to look at the Browns and have them assume the culture, personality, and basically the overall vibe of the Cleveland Browns organizations right now. That's really kind of been downtrodden ever since bringing in the Deshaun Watson circus. You don't really see Nick Chubb out there having fun or like bouncing on the sidelines. Amari Cooper doesn't look like he's out there, really enjoying himself, as he's averaged 5.6 fantasy points per game since Deshaun Watson's come back. I think this is something that, maybe the Browns are a wash for the rest of the season, just because this is a media circus that hopefully dies down. But right now, there's a lot of negative press and a lot of negative atmosphere around the Browns. And obviously something that I don't want to highlight. I hate narratives. I hate talking about speculation, but I'm just reporting what I see. And obviously we had a bad game from Amari Cooper and a very bad game from Nick Chubb. Very different from what we've seen throughout up until week 11 of this season. So I'm just very concerned with Browns going forward. And we'll highlight that in the upcoming game on Thursday. Eagles continue to roll, absolute beatdown of the New York Giants. Again, we saw them absolutely eviscerate I forget who the team was, on the ground with 300 rushing yards. Then they came back against the Titans, 300 passing yards. Again, they found a very balanced offense. This team is hitting its stride. Devonta Smith has absolutely emerged, an absolute league winner. Congratulations to everyone who has on his team. He was an auto start going forward. But, Miles Sanders had an amazing game. We'll highlight him later. Jalen Hurts, over 30 fantasy points a game. I mean, this is just such an incredible offense, such a balanced offense, and I don't see them slowing down anytime soon. Yeah, man, Eagles were that team, and there's a ton of value. I mean, whether it's A.J. Brown in the third round, that's still a value. Devonta Smith in the seventh round was a value. Miles Sanders, wherever you took him, was a value. Jalen Hurts should have been a second-round quarterback. Dallas Goedert, even with him on IR, he should have been a top-5 quarterback looking at the play of Kittle, Waller, and even Mark Andrews at this point. So the Eagles, man, that's a truly terrifying team to face in the NFL right now. Going to recap the Jaguars-Titans game here, and we saw just absolute evisceration of the Titans, and I don't really know what to do with them. I think this is like a 2-game losing skid for them. Back-to-back bad games for that offense there. Obviously, Derrick Henry got rolling again, but this is a Jaguars defense. They allowed like 40 points to the Detroit Lions last week, so it's not like we're going out and celebrating that they put in any good work on a good defense. This is a bad defense that's just been ripe for people to take advantage of. But Derrick Henry can't hold on to the ball. Treylon Burks continues to be out with concussion protocol, and I'm kind of scared for the Titans right now. They have some tough matchups coming here down the stretch. The Jaguars, on the other hand, Trevor Lawrence, QB1 on the week, absolutely took over, making some incredible plays. Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, a lot of these guys on the Jaguars. I'm very excited for their long-term aspects. I mean, obviously Zay Jones is going to be crucial to a lot of people. Fantasy's run right here. I know a lot of people have picked him up already. Christian Kirk has been a guy that has outplayed his draft capital so far, and a guy that I really, really like in this Jaguars offense. I think he'll be a crucial part going forward. But, I mean, imagine once they get in some more offensive line help. Imagine once they get a defensive tackle like a Siaki Ika or a Gervin Dexter. Or imagine if they're right now, they're kind of in line to take up a Quinton Johnson, pair them with Calvin Ridley. You don't know what you have in Calvin Ridley, so I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to go out and get one of these dominant, or in my opinion, there's one tier of wide receiver, which is Quinton Johnston, and then everyone, I mean, Jack Smith-Njigba and Jordan Addison are tier 2, and then everyone else after that, Jalen Hyatt is number 3, and then after that, Josh Downs, Rashee Rice are tier 4. It's just how I view the draft personally, but I think pairing them with some of these offensive weapons, Travis Etienne continues to look good. Hopefully, when he gets back fully healthy. But man, these Jaguars, maybe this is changing the guard down there. But I think he's going to be very crucial for anyone who picked up a Jaguars asset halfway through the season to a championship run here. And last, but certainly not least, we have to discuss the Kyler injury. At this point, I mean, he went down on the third play of the game to a non-contact injury, according to multiple reports. At this point, there is very little doubt that is anything but an ACL tear. This is devastating. DeAndre Hopkins had looked like a savior coming in throughout the middle of the season, played really, really well. Marquise Brown had developed an almost instantaneous connection. I mean, not developed. I mean, they picked up from the Kyler to Hollywood connection after they played together at Oklahoma. He was seeing tons of utilization, and then just he comes into now we see Colt McCoy take over this offense. We saw offensive linemen go down. I mean, again, I said this on Sleeper last week, but this Cardinals injury report looks more like a CVS list day by day. And I don't know how much faith. The only one I really have faith in right here with the Cardinals is going to be James Conner, because his workload is absolutely insane. He's averaging somewhere close to the neighborhood of 30 opportunities per game. But this is devastating. Cliff Kingsbury probably not going to return. Steve Keim probably does not return after this year. Kyler Murray, that injury is going to take him out for at least a year. You basically can call the Cardinals experiment down there in Phoenix a wash at this point, and there's not going to even be close to somewhat ready coming into 2023 either. Just terrible, terrible news for Kyler Murray, for a young guy who actually had been finding his stride a little bit. I don't like to believe in the negative aspect of players. I think that he continued to mature year in, year out, and I think he was really taking that step. And I think a lot of the troubles this year was frankly surrounded by the injury report and how injured that team has been, especially on both sides of the ball. And this is just a devastating way to cap off a disappointing season for the Cardinals. So that's it for the headlines. Again, a little bit longer as we had a lot to discuss here, but let's jump into our stud section. We're going to start it off with Trevor Lawrence, 33.4 points, QB1 on the week, absolutely smoking the Tennessee Titans, really coming into his own. Very scary injury last week, but comes and bounces back. Dude is resilient, throws all over the yard on the Titans. And I mean, everyone's talking about, man, this guy didn't even have a rookie season under Urban Meyer. And you know what? I believe it. I really do believe it. And I believe this is rookie season. And, this is the Trevor Lawrence everyone thought was taking one-on-one. And he looks good. He looks really, really good. Good things to come for the Jaguars. Number 2, Justin Jefferson putting up 27.8 points in a pretty devastating loss to the Lions. I was personally confused as to why the Lions were favored, but apparently this is why Vegas sets lines. They know a lot more than we do. Again, that Minnesota defense has just been on a steady decline week over week. And we've highlighted it so many times that on the surface, the Detroit Lions running matchup looks good, but they've shut down so many great backs between Saquon Barkley, Aaron Jones, Devin Singletary, Dalvin Cook. I mean, they're absolutely getting it done with the emergence of Aiden Hutchinson. But Justin Jefferson is just way, way too talented. And when you see Dalvin Cook get shut down, Justin Jefferson steps up in a big, big way. Basically, he is matchup proof. He is game script proof. He is just a guy that is absolutely that dude. Number 3, first Bronco player to ever make this list, I think, frankly. Jerry Jeudy with 29.3 points finds the end zone 3 times. A very bizarre game where they end up being down 27-0 pretty early on in the game. And then Russell Wilson just comes out and absolutely finds a new life, turns back the clock 4 or 5 years. Jerry Jeudy obviously helped by the fact that Courtland Sutton was missing time, and their injury report was, again, rivaling the Cardinals at this point in time. Basically the only wide receiving option outside of Greg Dulcich. So Jerry Jeudy absolutely explodes. 3 touchdowns, over 100 yards. And finally something good to talk about with the Broncos. We'll see if he can keep it up. Hopefully Portland can come back in, maybe add a little bit more dynamic aspect to this offense. Number 4, very surprising player to find this list is going to be Jerick McKinnon, putting up an insane 28.9 points. Again, this is I'm not going to say a frustrating Kansas City team. They just have so many average tier weapons, and we've talked about how good Patrick Mahomes is, and he just, again, elevates average guys to superstars. And this is why you can take an Isaiah Pacheco. This is why you can take a Jerick McKinnon, a Juju Smith-Schuster, an MVS, a Mecole Hardman, and just throw them around there, and now you have an elite skill position set because not Travis Kelce, but Travis Kelce is really good, but Patrick Mahomes just elevates the play of everyone around him. It is hard to predict who's going to get the work week in and week out. I mean, Juju still had a pretty good game. He ends up with 17.9 fantasy points, but Jerick McKinnon with the touch passes out of the backfield, with the rushing work, splitting that with Isaiah Pacheco, getting all those nice dump offs from Patrick Mahomes. He really takes an absolute banger of a game this past Sunday. However, no one in their right mind probably started him. So, fun fact, and Evan Ingram, my champion, a guy that I've been super high on from before the season. So, this is a little personal pat in the back for me as he goes off for 2 touchdowns, 170 yards, 33.7 points. Dude put on an absolute show against the Titans. We knew this was a Titans defense that was number 2 against the run. We knew Travis Etienne was going to have a very, very tough day. But little did we know, we projected that Zay Jones and Christian Kirk were going to bulk of the work, but Evan Ingram, dude, just comes out, has himself a game, over 10 receptions. I luckily played him in my dynasty league, but I know that was, probably few and far between anyone's going to spot start Evan Ingram, but that guy is talented. He was a Pro Bowler his freshman year, for better or for worse, for how legit you think that Pro Bowl was. But he is talented. They brought him in. He's one of the top 5 highest paid tight ends in the league. Just follow the money. It's there. And he was absolutely crucial to outscoring the Titans this week. An incredible game. Looks like he has a great connection with Trevor Lawrence going forward. So that was the 5 guys we did highlight. Let's jump into some honorable mentions. Jared Goff, again, this is a Vikings defense, a very predictable, good game for Jared Goff with 26.1 points. A Vikings defense that's, I think, 29th in points given to the quarterback position. They're absolutely crushing it for fantasy. At this point, if you need a streamer, you just play whoever the Vikings are playing. On the other side, Kirk Cousins is not too shabby himself, putting up 25.0 points. Where the Lions are strong on the run game, they are pretty weak on the pass game. And again, when you have Justin Jefferson, it's going to make Kirk Cousins look very, very good. Adam Thielen also got involved, and I believe we did recommend that he was a must start this week, just given the run defense of the Lions. So if you started him, you're also pretty happy. Tony Pollard, 20.2 points, finds the end zone twice, one receiving, one rushing. Just super confident on the ground, just insanely popular, and insanely talented. And this dude is going to get paid. He's a free agent in the offseason. He's been sitting behind Zeke for way too long, but we've kind of gone over the metrics of, yards after contact, average yards per attempt, broken tackles per rush attempt. This dude is just more explosive than Zeke, more powerful than Zeke, and just is quicker than Zeke. So not surprised that he outscored Zeke. He is so dynamic in this Cowboys offense that, they struggled a little bit against Houston Texans, but not for lack of the offense. The offense actually looked pretty good. J.K. Dobbins, welcome back, my dude. 18 points against a pretty revamped Steelers defense with T.J. Watt rejoining the fold after Week 10. He jumps in, comes back into the lead running back role. He led the team in total rush attempts and snap share from the running back position, which is always great to see. Fun fact on J.K. Dobbins, every time he gets over 10 opportunities per game, he puts up double-digit points for fantasy. So I think especially with Tyler Huntley taking over, maybe not even Tyler Huntley. He left the game. He has a questionable tag right now. Could be Antonio Johnson, or honestly, I don't even really know the third string quarterback's name, but they're really going to lead into J.K. Dobbins against the 30th ranked Cleveland run defense. If you stashed him, this is what he's here for. Jamar Chase, 23.5 points. Dude's just a baller. We saw T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd both leave the game early with injuries. T. Higgins had a finger injury before the game, which is really disappointing. Again, not reported before the game, so he goosed a lot of people in that in their wide receiver spot. So Jamar Chase obviously being the number one option there. Obviously he gets his. He's just insanely talented, 23.5 points. Josh Jacobs, dude is consistent as ever, having one of the best running back seasons in recent history. Currently leads the NFL in total rushing yards. And against this Rams defense that was without Aaron Donald. They've been without Von Miller since last year. But against the Rams defense on Thursday night, he absolutely put on a show. Again, the Rams are bleeding points at both the wide receiver and the running back spot. So yeah, prime opportunity for Josh Jacobs to take advantage of that. Jalen Hurts, 30.4 points. We talked about how balanced this Eagles offense is. Jalen Hurts now has 20 passing touchdowns and 10 rushing touchdowns on the season. The dude is just a baller. MVP chance for Jalen, risk raining down. Miles Sanders, 28.0 points. Again, Nick Sirianni loves his running attack. And against even a decent running defense team like the New York Giants, Miles Sanders got it done. They're just so creative in their play calling, in their play scheme, and there's just so many options you have to pay attention to. Typically, you're getting one-on-one coverage, one single high safety over the top on Devontae Smith, and that's how you saw him get his touchdown, Miles Sanders. Typically, you have to have a spy linebacker watching Jalen Hurts, so Miles Sanders typically is not getting stuffed in the middle. Just absolutely crazy. What the Eagles can do. That is truly a terrifying team. They're firing all cylinders at absolutely the right time. Tyreek Hill, 22.1 points for a very disappointing Dolphins team. The only bright spot was Tyreek Hill. Has a 57-yard fumble recovery. Too bad you don't get those yards for that, but picked up the fumble, goes 57 yards for the touchdown. Also gets a 48-yard passing touchdown. Jalen Waddle's non-existent. Raheem Mostert non-existent. Jeff Wilson left the game early with injury. Mike Gesicki goosed. Tua looked absolutely horrible. We'll have to see what goes forward with these Dolphins, if Mike McDaniel's offense has been figured out, or if this is something he can bounce back from. Again, same thing. Someone compared it to Sean McVay when he first came into the NFL. Like his offense looked unstoppable. Then people figured it out, started watching film on it, started breaking it down. Can he counter and bring back that first 4 or 5 weeks that we were used to seeing from Tua Tagovailoa and company? But Tyreek Hill apparently is just the greatest wide receiver alive and just will get it done no matter what. Derrick Henry, 19.0 points, which is even more impressive when you factor in that he had 2 fumbles. Again, this is a terrible Jaguars running defense. I would like to see them pick up a Gervin Dexter or Siaki Ika when it comes to draft around. Next April, however, right now, Derrick Henry still one of the best running backs in the NFL and just absolutely gets it done, especially with some of them limiting wide receiver options with Traylon Burks out with concussion. The Titans, Derrick Henry is absolutely that dude. Christian McCaffrey, again, we knew he was going to be a top 5 wide receiver running back on the week. Even though this is a top 5 running defense of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, this is Christian McCaffrey. He's going to get it done through the air. He's going to get it done on the ground, especially supporting Brock Purdy. We knew his involvement in the offense was going to be absolutely crucial. So yeah, CMC was that dude, 28.3 points, absolutely getting it done. DJ Chark, 18.4 points. Again, part of this offensive explosion from the Detroit Lions. Just a great deep threat option for Jared Goff, who's been having he's having a great season. Like, he's making really good throws. I mean, one of the biggest jokes was that Jared Goff's biggest rival was throws more than 20 yards down the field. And DJ Chark, he had a couple pretty throws to DJ Chark. If you spot started him, good on you, man. Austin Eckler, 20.4 points. Again, a 27th ranked run defense for Miami, not that great. We knew that the game script was going to heavily involve Austin Eckler. Finds the end zone, 20.4 points, has really come on after a couple disappointing weeks in the beginning of the season to be a top 5 running back on the season for fantasy. Mike Williams comes back, a surprise start for me. I thought he was going to be held out for another game, but no, he comes back, immediately finds utilization in this offense. 20.6 points. Dude is an absolute baller. Catches a incredible toe tap touchdown, heavily utilized in this offense. And you know what? Justin Herbert and that entire Chargers offense looked really damn good now that everyone's healthy and back in the fold. And finally, we got to highlight James Conner. The dude is averaging nearly 30 opportunities per game. This is a New England defense that was second in points given at the running back position, but they couldn't stop James Conner. I mean, his efficiency was hampered just a little bit, but I mean, the opportunity he's getting right now is just absolutely insane. No one in fantasy is getting anything like it save Derrick Henry. So James Conner really making a name for a lot of those RB dead zone running backs. 20.4 points, absolute monster. So now we talked about some good stuff. Let's talk about some of the bad stuff and the duds. We're going to start off, we're going to kind of congeal T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd because they both goosed you this week. T. Higgins, again, had that finger injury that no one decided to report before the game, and he snuck onto the field apparently to play one snap without, like, what are you doing, Zach Taylor? What kind of control do you have over this offense? Like, that's just absolutely insane. Tyler Boyd also leaves really early in the game with an injury. Tyler Boyd's been very disappointing for fantasy for the past 5 weeks, so we kind of got off the Tyler Boyd trade like 3 or 4 weeks ago, so we kind of avoided that whole debacle. But T. Higgins, dude, that's rough, especially in week 14 when you really needed to win for playoff contention. Seeing that goose definitely wasn't good, and I know we don't need solid reporting. I know this is, internal affairs on the NFL teams. They can do whatever they want. They need to take care of the health of their players. But come on, this is just really frustrating for the fantasy community when you have that kind of lackluster reporting. DJ Moore, 0.6 points. Just nothing could get done in Carolina from the passing game. Sam Darnold looked pretty inefficient, and we saw a ton of options just from the running game. I mean, Raheem Blackshear scored a 25-yard touchdown. Chuba Hubbard finds the end zone as well, and when we saw this 3-headed running back monster between him, Deonta Foreman, Raheem Blackshear, and just there was no real need for Terrace Marshall or DJ Moore to get involved, and he ends up with 1 catch for 1 yard. That's absolutely mind-numbing after he had such a good performance against Denver 2 weeks ago. DJ Moore continues to frustrate fantasy managers all over the world. 0.6 points, that's brutal. Kyler Murray finishes with 0.6 points as well, not for lack of trying. I mean, this was, again, super disappointing. As someone who isn't going to hate on Kyler Murray, I'm not going to trash talk the man. I think he was a very talented young quarterback and a guy who was maturing and coming into his own in the NFL. Goes down with a non-contact injury. A guy that he was a top 10 quarterback. I believe he was quarterback 6 or 8. He was either right above or right below Geno Smith last time I checked the standings. Again, had that insane rushing ability to help win you weeks. It was going to have a pretty juicy playoff schedule as well, but goes down. Very little doubt that it is that it's an ACL at this point, going to be removing him from any contention from your team for the rest of the season and probably rest of next season as well. James Cook, 2.0 fantasy points. Let's not get fooled here. He had a great game 2 weeks ago. However, this is also a team that, again, week in, week out, from drafting James Cook to trading for Nyheim Hines, Devin Singletary has been the lead snap share back every single week so far without fail. And again, we saw it as Devin Singletary is going to be crucial, and James Cook really was the third running back on this team in opportunities. Josh Allen, number one. Devin Singletary, number two. James Cook, number three. Unfortunately, again, we got a little blindsided. We got a little rose-colored glasses seeing him break out, seeing him being explosive. Yes, he has a little bit more burst. Yes, he's a little bit faster than Devin Singletary, but Singletary is, he's that dude for the Buffalo Bills. He is their mainstay. He is their lead back who's going to be out there, has a better connection with Josh Allen at this point and more of a safety blanket for him. Finally, Jeff Wilson, 2.6 points, leaves the game early with an injury. Unfortunately, I know there's a lot of questions about, I stayed away from the Miami backfield personally this week. I didn't have faith in either him or Raheem Mostert, but I know some people, just based on the way injuries played out and the way the season was heading, like they had to play one or the other. Unfortunately, Jeff Wilson leaves really early with, I believe, a hip injury. Does not look good for him whatsoever. Very disappointing game, especially against the 31st ranked run defense of the Los Angeles Chargers. Let's get into some honorable mentions. Jamal Williams, 3.7 points, absolutely devastating. Didn't see him get involved at all, especially when they put up just an insane amount of points. They put up over 30 points, and Jamal Williams still getting 3.7 points. And for fantasy is devastating. Didn't get that touchdown that we've come to expect from Jamal Williams. I mean, DeAndre Swift has clearly taken over the backfield. Jameson Williams' involvement has also dispersed the opportunity pie of the offense. Amon-Ra St. Brown, DJ Chark, we're getting really more involved in the fantasy and more involved in the passing game. So Jamal Williams, I think this is sayonara, sweet prince. Devin Singletary, 4.8 points. Frustrating game. It's a really good Jets defense. 4.8 points, but I don't think this is anything worrying. I think he will be crucial to fantasy championship runs. 4.8 points, but he is still the lead back in that offense, as we described when we talked about James Cook. Continue to play Devin Singletary. He is a must start at this point. Stephon Diggs also finds his way in here at 5.2 points. And I mean, not something that we can say we're really surprised about. Sauce Gardner has been the best cornerback, not amongst rookies, but amongst like the entire league at this point. Absolutely shut down Stephon Diggs. Did not allow a single catch to Diggsy when Sauce was in coverage. So it was going to be a frustrating day for Diggs. We knew that coming in, and I don't think there's anything that you should be taken negatively about Diggs from that game. It's just a really tough defensive matchup. Nick Chubb, 6.9 points. Nice. Again, we highlighted this in the Browns section where I am very worrisome about the Browns. I think they're taking on the culture of that negativity surrounding the Deshaun Watson return. Nick Chubb, they're putting the ball in the hands of the $250 million man in Deshaun Watson, who they paid a guaranteed money to for the next 4 years, taking it out of Nick Chubb's hands, trying to justify their investment in him. It just seems like a guy that was so primed. It was such a great value for fantasy. It's so hard to have any faith in the Browns' assets right now. That also goes for Amari Cooper. Again, 5.2 points this past week, but also now averaging 5.6 points over the past 2 games with Deshaun Watson. Just not getting it done in the air. He just does not look accurate. He's still shaking off the rust. Amari Cooper is probably a desperation flex play at best going forward. Travis Etienne, 3.2 points. Super talented, but he was still dealing with that ankle injury. He's still a little bit injured, not 100%. Also, this is the Titans run defense that was number 2 in the league. We again projected that the passing game was going to greatly outscore the run game, and that's what they did, and they leaned into it, and they were highly successful. So you can't really be upset with Etienne's performance in 3.2 points, but I think he'll be more utilized once they have a positive matchup when he's not being smashed in the mouth by Justin Simmons every play. DeAndre Swift, 5.4 points. Obviously, kind of in the same vein where, James Cook was disappointing and I would absolutely be concerned. Devin Singletary was disappointing and I would not be concerned. Jamal Williams, disappointing and I would be concerned. DeAndre Swift, disappointing, I would not be concerned. Again, they just leaned heavily into the pass game this week. DeAndre Swift had by far and away the most snap share from the running back position. They had the most total opportunities from the running back position. He's heavily utilized in the pass catching game. I think he is a cheat code for fantasy. He's absolutely breaking and peaking at the right time for fantasy playoffs continue to play him. Gabe Davis, 4.6 points. I know he's a super boomer bust prospect, and he continues to bust week in and week out. I don't see this changing going forward. Next week up in Buffalo, it's going to be 37 degrees, 3 to 4 inches of snow, 17 miles an hour winds. And when you have a guy like Gabe Davis, who is 6'2", 615 pounds, and you're going up against a team that is 20th against running backs and 27th against tight ends, I mean, it's going to be run, pass underneath Dawson Knox, and Gabe Davis will be blocking most of the time. I just don't think Gabe Davis can be a guy that's trusted, especially with how crucial the fantasy playoffs are. George Kittle, 4.8 points. Brock Purdy, for as good as he was, for as amazing as his debut was, he unfortunately only completed 16 out of 21 passes. He's just not passing the ball. I mean, there's different ways to manage this offense, and Kyle Shanahan clearly likes to manage it via the run game. Obviously, you have CMC backed up by Jordan Mason, who did look very good on the ground, actually outscored George Kittle for fantasy. But when George Kittle is the third option in this passing game, and in a passing game that's only completing 16 passes, gives me very little confidence going forward. And I think they're just going to lean heavily into the run game and, again, make it an offense for Brock Purdy that he can facilitate, not have to completely be responsible for. Mike Evans, 6.4 points, hasn't found the end zone since week 3. What do we do? This Buccaneers team is just completely falling apart. Mike Evans can't seem to find separation, dropping crucial passes, had a long touchdown that was called back on an offensive holding penalty. It's just so unlucky. I think just because the talent is there, you have to keep playing him. But this is also a really tough matchup against the San Francisco 49ers. So obviously disappointing, but again, something you got to just keep dealing with. CeeDee Lamb, 5.8 points. A super talented wide receiver. He has emerged as the alpha in that offense. I don't think anyone's going to take that away from him. Again, this is a Houston team that is just so bad against the run that wide receivers just aren't really that involved. Wouldn't worry about it too much. CeeDee Lamb, 5.8 points. That's just the game script of how it goes for Houston. Saquon Barkley, though, that's very, very frustrating. Again, we hit a guy that we thought was going to be very, very good against this Eagles team. Only finishes with 5.8 points. Again, was hampered with that neck injury, so we don't know how much that affected him, but also dealing with an Eagles run defense that, has come back. Ndamukong Suh is finding his stride. They're really rotating out a lot of guys and having a very fresh rotation, which means that, those guys aren't being tired late in the games. They're still being able to, run a pretty solid run defense and get pressure in the backfield. So this Eagles defense has completely turned around. Mark Andrews, 2.7 points. That's absolutely devastating. He still looks like he's not fully healthy 100%. This Ravens team is just so banged up. It's hard to trust any fantasy aspect for them right now. Latavius Murray, 4.6 points. Is what it is. Again, we saw Jerry Jeudy be the breakout person, and Russell Wilson was just completely had confidence throwing it to him. Again, Latavius is still the lead back in Broncos country, so we continue to ride with him, but just disappointing performance. Jalen Waddle, 4.1 points. This dude needs to show up, and I mean, it's honestly on the back of Tua, who had a pretty rough game. I don't know how well Waddle's going to be involved next week. Very, very, very concerned as he goes up to Buffalo. Again, 17 miles an hour winds, 3 to 4 inches of snow. Not the best conditions for the passing game, but Jalen Waddle has been on a pretty sour note for the past few games. I'm just not sure where he's going to be at with that offense, and hopefully it's going to be resting on the shoulders of Michael Daniels how to figure out how to get him utilized, because they're not going to be winning games if the only relevant asset on offense is Tyreek Hill. They got to figure out how to bring out their other weapons, whether it is Raheem Mostert or Jalen Waddle. Hollywood Brown, 5.4 points, a guy that I was super excited to see play on Monday night. Again, had a tremendous snap share, tremendous opportunity share with Kyler Murray, but Kyler goes down on the third play. We see Colt McCoy come in. Colt McCoy is nowhere near as good at facilitating the offense, and Hollywood Brown finishes with 5.4 points. Very disappointing. I don't know how much you can trust anything in this Cardinals offense going forward. Finally, Ramondre Stevenson, a guy that I was so high on as like one of the best running backs. He's a top 12 running back for fantasy so far in this year, and he leaves early with that ankle injury. I hope it's not too bad. I hope we see him back. But again, 2 points against this Arizona run defense is absolutely brutal. A guy that you really thought was going to come out and dominate on Monday night and help you win that championship. So that's all our duds. Again, we're running a little bit long on this episode, so let's see if we can wrap up waivers pretty quickly here. Number one, pretty obvious, Evan Ingram. as long as Travis Etienne continues to not be 100%, and this passing offense continues to be pretty fluid, and Trevor Lawrence continues to take a step forward, Evan Ingram is obviously going to be a very crucial part of this passing offense, and especially in a tight end room that's so confusing. I mean, Evan Ingram right now is, I think, the 7th tight end in points per game when it comes to fantasy. So, I mean, yeah, in a place where, Kittle's out. I'm down on Kittle. Zach Ertz's out for the rest of the season. Dallas Goedert's out. Darren Waller's out. I mean, Evan Ingram, go have yourself a day, my man. Pick him up. Number 2, Chuba Hubbard. D'Onta Foreman still looks like he's dealing with a rib and ankle injury, or is a knee injury. I forget, some sort of lower body injury. Chuba Hubbard looks like he took over the snap share from D'Onta Foreman, found the end zone. So if you do need a spot start from a running back, Chuba Hubbard would be the guy to go with as D'Onta Foreman continues to be limited in practice. Number 3, again, really deep diving here. This is only a desperation flex if need be, but again, you try to find those alpha guys in offenses, and as long as Nico Collins continues to remain out, as long as Brandon Cooks continues to not play for the Houston Texans, the guy who has the highest snap share and the highest target totals is going to be Chris Moore. Seems to have a decent connection with Davis Mills, who is going to be the going forward quarterback. So, I mean, if you have an issue or have a guy like Kenneth Walker who's out on injury, Chris Moore, I think, is a pretty safe floor play just from a volume aspect. Number 4 is going to be Richie James. I know we're really deep diving here, but this is, again, going off injury. This is a Giants team that's heavily injured. Kenny Golladay, he's not injured, but he's just not there mentally. Sterling Shepard's out. And Saquon Barkley is still dealing pretty heavily with that neck injury. Again, necks are super sensitive. It takes a lot to come back from. Just look at Matt Stafford. He's out for the rest of the season with that neck contusion, aka spinal contusion. So Richie James obviously is finding a lot more utilization in this offense. And again, as long as Saquon's going to be limited in practice, I think Richie James is, a decent opportunity to be the number 1 option in that Giants offense. And I mean, it's not a very offensive dominant team, but it's a team that, you're trying to find points, you're trying to find volume, you're trying to find safe opportunity in the playoffs. And finally, we're coming back full circle because time is a circle, Earth is a circle, everything's a circle. We started off talking about Brock Purdy, and we're going to finish with our last waiver wire pickup being Brock Purdy, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Irrelevant. Again, not that he is anything special from a quarterbacking aspect, but with Kyler Murray, especially going down to injury, with a lot of other guys facing, very questionable matchups. Brock Purdy, even with that oblique injury, he played through it. He apparently got injured on the second play of the game, so I'm not really worried about the injury aspect of it, but, he is set up for success in this offense. He is set up to efficiently reap the rewards of a dynamic offense, whether it's checking down to CMC, whether it's passing to Brandon Ayuk, whether it's scheming things open for him. He actually is not that terrible of a runner either. Again, we saw his processing in the pocket go up, so again, probably a little bit late to the party on Brock Purdy, but you should pick him up if he's still there on the waiver wires and you need a desperation start at quarterback because they do have a good matchup schedule throughout the rest of the playoffs. So I believe that takes the cake for the record of longest episode here on TwinTakes Fantasy Football. I am so sorry for taking up so much of your time, but this was, again, a majorly important week to recap. Again, if you're still with us, if you're still in the playoffs, I congratulate you. Welcome, and we'll go on this ride for the next 3 weeks. It's going to be a bumpy ride for sure. No idea what the future holds, as we saw this past weekend, but we'll do our best to break it down. I'll see you back here in 2 days as we kind of check out what the scene looks like for Week 15. Take care.